We're ready for the start. They're off.
Hey there, everybody. It's Tuesday, so Jeff Siegel and I are high above the track in the steward's booth. We're ready to declare some things official. It's official, where we take on 5 hot topics each week. And Jeff, I think we're 16, 17, 18 days away from the Kentucky Derby now, so it's just right around the corner. A lot of Derby talk coming up this week for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting this year. I'm looking at various rankings. I've got one, you've got one, in terms of the top 10 or whatever it is, and it just seems to me that a lot of people just don't want to pick Forte, and I don't blame them, because I didn't pick him either, you know.
Right.
But when you look at his form, I wonder if he's going to be as short of. Nah, he's not going to be a short price favorite, but he'll be the favorite. But I just wonder if he just might drift in the gambling, because so many people are not picking him for whatever reason. I mean, I know why I'm not picking him, because I don't want to pick the favorite. And I guess that's what people don't want to do. They don't want to bet the favorite. So they end up betting other horses they don't really like, and the favorite drifts, and then he wins off, and people say, wow, what a great price. So anyway, maybe between now and then I'll change my mind, but maybe you will too. But bottom line is, it's a wide open Derby with lots of opinions and a lot of contenders.
Yeah, I'm thinking 7-2-ish on the favorite right now, if we get the full 20 boat. I think the win last year by Rich Strike, at 80-1 plus, will compress the huge long shots down. People aren't going to let horses go off big prices. That's usually the next year reaction when a big bomb wins the Derby, that the top end of the tote board's usually not as high the next year, that people bet the long shots the next year. And so that's going to push the prices up on the main contenders. So I'm thinking about 7-2 will be the price on the favorite come post time in the Derby. We got time to figure that out, just who that might be, because they haven't made the entries. They haven't made the starting gate. We've got a long way to go in terms of impact on that. But we start things off on our Triple Crown Tracker. It's our first of 5 topics. This will take a while. We could do a whole show on just the Triple Crown Tracker, because last week we had some action on the track at Keeneland and the Lexington Stakes that not only will impact the field for the Kentucky Derby, but also the Preakness Stakes. It was First Mission in there, Disarm, trying to qualify for the Derby. He needed a top 3 finish.
Arabian Lion leads at a length and a half. First Mission is second, midway on the far turn. Prairie Hawk is in third. Disarm is fourth, looking for running room. Now goes to third, 3.5 lengths off the lead. Demolition Duke is fourth to his inside, but Arabian Lion leads to the top of the short stretch in the Stone Street Lexington. Arabian Lion with First Mission having plenty of room to the inside and trying to scoot up the rail to challenge Arabian Lion. Close quarters between this pair, then Disarm, and then Dennington. First Mission keeps running up the inside. First Mission grabs the lead. First Mission, Luis Saez to win it. Arabian Lion home second. Disarm was third in 1 minute 43.74 seconds in the Stone Street Lexington.
So it was the Brad Cox trained First Mission. We told you I needed him for my fantasy team, Jeff. We finally got a big W on the season. Took to the Keeneland meet to get on the board with a big win. Corona Bolt last week, and now this one. But more important than my fantasy team, it was, a Preakness qualifier, essentially, a springboard for First Mission. Let's talk about him first. Nice win coming up the fence here, and he's a lightly raced colt who just continues to improve.
He's only had the 3 starts. He was beaten in his debut, which isn't the worst thing in the world when you have a nice prospect. They can come back with that race under their belt, and then they can run against maidens again, as opposed to tackling much more experienced and tougher horses. So it worked out well for First Mission after he was beaten by a good horse in Bishop's Bay, and then came back and graduated by 7. Running almost against the wind, but he did it, got a nice confidence-building win. And then he moved from that maiden race at Fairgrounds to this stakes race, and the number was strong. The 99 Beyer number makes him a very legitimate Preakness possibility if he continues to step forward, which there's no reason why he won't. The thing that puzzled me, though, Jeremy, in watching that video is at the quarter pole, First Mission was under a drive and not really gaining. And the Arabian Lion was breezing, and then if you could bet at that time, I would have lost a lot of money in trying to figure out whether First Mission was going to catch him. But he got up inside, showed some courage, ran good, and is a progressive colt in the right barn. So, I mean, you have to like him, don't you?
I do. And, this is a horse like Owendale a couple of years ago, won this race, late
Right.
bloomer. Then Cox went to the Preakness with him, and he ran pretty well at Pimlico. Those Cox horses, and I talked about this in some of my handicapping podcasts for Keeneland, they have an unbelievable record. He wins 31, 32% in mile to 16th races at Keeneland. They use that short stretch finish line. And the Cox horses, when they turn for home, they seem to take that proverbial big breath and then just re-break at the top of the stretch. And like you said, it looked like he was in quicksand going nowhere at the quarter pole. Once straightened out, though, he was able to get the acceleration, and all they got to do is survive to the 16-pole finish line. Good handicapping tip if you're playing Keeneland during the course of the week or any weekday. Those mile to 16th races are really Brad Cox country, and a lot of his horses have run well at this meet at any distance, but certainly I thought the race from First Mission was a good one. Arabian Lion outran expectations on the stretch out. I didn't think he could run that well that far, but that was kind of Super Bowl Sunday for him there, right? That was kind of his derby if he was going to get a two-turn race, because mile on a 16th, a grade 3 field in the Lexington, and the finish line's at the 16th pole. It's probably as good as it gets for Arabian Lion. If they were to go to the Preakness with him, I'd be no thanks.
Yeah, I talked to Bob Baffert, the trainer, yesterday, and it reminded him that Arabian Lion's dam was strictly a sprinter, and he kind of said, "Yeah, I think he can go maybe a mile, but I doubt there's any Preakness in his future because." I mean, you're right. I mean, he got loose in the lead. He got over from the 11 hole. Didn't have to get used very hard. Got away with comfortable fractions, 24-48, and not going head and head in the process. Opened up at the quarter pole and still kind of hit a wall. So I think the jury is. I think we've figured out what First Mission wants to do, and maybe a one-turn mile. I reminded again the trainer Bob Baffert that. You sprinted him first time out, and he won very nicely that day. And maybe you bring him back to one turn, and he kind of, I know. But now you got to the owner wanted to give him another chance, and he had trained well. I want to talk about the third horse here, though, and that is a horse named Disarm, who I actually kind of liked 2 races back in the Louisiana Derby when he ran second, and I didn't think that he got a great ride that day because I know what he can and can't do. And I was really disappointed in the fact that he was kind of left for dead. I know he's a one-pace grinder, no acceleration at all, but I thought he'd stay on and at least make a run for it, and they left him completely. And sometimes you look at a horse like Disarm, and all that does is make you reevaluate the horse that beat him last time out, and that's King's Barnes. And I'm thinking that because I like King's Barnes, I'm saying, reality says that maybe he didn't beat a whole lot in the Louisiana Derby, and based on what I just saw, I'm kind of thinking that might be true.
Yeah, with Disarmed, you almost feel like his style is more Belmont Stakes-esque, Like you just kind of go 24 and 4 all the way around the track, never really pick it up. He's by Gun Runner out of the Tappet mare, so maybe a Belmont horse for Disarm, but I don't like him in the Kentucky Derby off this effort. I think you want to be sharper than this going into the Derby. I mean, there are some recent examples of horses who weren't greatly sharp. I mean, you could look at last year and Rich Strike kind of blows everything out of the water. But prior to that, I mean, horses in really good raging form for the last decade have been the horses that have run well in the Derby. Backing in on a lackluster, well-beaten third place finish hasn't been a good Derby recipe in a long time. So I can't get too interested in Disarm going to the Kentucky Derby off this, Jeff. He is in the field though, because he needed just 5-6 points to kind of get over the hump. He was at 40 and the others at 45. Jace's Road now bumped off the bubble, and also off the bubble as we want to talk about some horses who aren't going to make the Derby field without a little bit of help at this point. Still a reasonable chance that we're going to have defections in the Kentucky Derby field, but Skinner and Mandarin Hero, the horses who were on the ticket, just, in the photo, if you will, in the Santa Anita Derby. Mandarin Hero from Japan, Skinner, of course, for the John Shuroff's barn. They were 3-way across the track to the wire with the practical move in the Santa Anita Derby. Right now, they're not in the field. Are you okay with that, or is there something amiss?
I'm not okay with it. I mean, I'd really not be okay with it if I was one of the owners of those horses.
Yeah,
but
right.
See, here's the thing. And I'm still mad about the quad 1 rankings for the NCAA tournament, how they overestimate that. And which has nothing to do with how good these teams are. It's just a matter of who gets lucky enough to play a schedule that includes quad 1 wins, but it doesn't mean that you're that good. as Purdue gloriously proved that, and Kansas and a few others. But
Right.
what I would like to see, and I'm not in charge, even though I wish I was, is a little bit of a tweak in the system that allows these rankings to determine who gets in the Kentucky Derby. For example, you mentioned that a horse like Disarm is in, and horses that I think are far more deserving but don't quite have the points for various reasons are not, for example, Skinner and certainly Mandarin Hero, who just came over, ran way better in getting beat a nose in the Santa Anita Derby than anything Disarm has ever done. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And yet Disarm is in there because of the stupid point system. What I would like to see is have the first 15 guarantee a spot if you have the first 15 spots in terms of the points. But the last 5 should be by invitation. That will allow to correct a wrong. And I think in this particular case, if they did that, anybody, and it could be the Churchill Downs Racing Office, it could be a committee, whoever they want, would look at this and say, how are you going to make a horse like Disarm, who all he's done is finish second in the Louisiana Derby, a distant second, and in a bad third, I thought, how does he get in over Mandarin Hero? And here's another thing. Let's just say, for example, First Mission won this race. He did, but let's say he won it by 12 and broke the track record. He wouldn't get in the Derby. You don't think he wouldn't have, based on this system. So what I'd like to see is top 15, go by points. Last 5, invitation. And if you're among the top 20 and you deserve to be in, you're in anyway. But if you're not, this allows some of these horses that are late developers. Now, I've heard the argument, well, everybody has a fair chance to run against the same amount of races. Everybody, they're there. If you don't, reward the horses that have run, which is, nice, but it doesn't work because certain horses aren't at that stage of development where you don't want to hurt a horse just to be running them because you're afraid you might not have points. If you have in your back pocket the idea of, I can get in by invitation if I do what's right by the horse and not try to jam extra races into him just so I can get enough points, maybe, it would be better off for the horse and his development and his, what he's ready to do. So that's what I would do. I think there'll be some talk about this if both Skinner and Mandarin Hero don't get in because they deserve to be in. They're among the top 20 for sure, and it's just circumstance that has prevented them from being guaranteed. I hope they get in anyway, but right now it's not looking that good to me, Jeremy. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're going to need some misfortune, I should say, for other horses, right? I mean, somebody's going to have to come up sick, miss a work, have an injury, that kind of deal like that. Up to 24 can enter for also eligibles. And we saw off the also eligible list last year, if not the scratch of the Lucas horse on Oaks Morning, Rich Strike gets into the field from the 21, gets into the starting gate of 20 and ends up winning the thing. This is the first year since they put the point system in play that they actually have any controversy. And it's been going on for about, 10, 15 years now with the point system when they switched over from graded stakes earnings. Typically, this thing sorts itself out. I think what they did this year that needs reevaluated more than the whole process is they changed the second place finisher. They went to giving points to the top 5 finishers in races instead of the top 4. And what ended up happening is they took the points away basically from the second place finisher and gave them to the 5th place finisher. So it used to be 50 points to run second in one of these big prep races. 50 would get you in easily almost any year. It was only worth 40 this year. So it was worth more to win a second level prep race, 50 points, than it was to run second in a final level prep race. And so to me, it's not as important to win the Rebel as it is to run second in the Arkansas Derby. They're at least equal footing, but it's certainly not worse to run second in the Arkansas Derby than it is to win the Rebel, or second in the Florida Derby versus the Fountain of Youth, and what happened, a Skinner and a horse like that, Mandarin Hero, if they'd have got the 50, they would be in there. Why are we worried about giving points to the 5th place horse? I don't understand that.
That's crazy.
So I don't know why they added this year. I think that was the misfire to the system because the system's actually worked every year until now, but now it seems like it's a little bit off kilter. I think adding the human element would screw things up, though. I'm going to completely disagree with you here because this sport is too incestuous, too many self-serving interests for any committee to sit down and make a rational decision. Because you give me a committee of daily racing form people or something like that, they're going to base it on the buyer figures and try to tell me that horse A or horse B is better because of the buyer. You give me a thoroughgraph guy, he's going to tell me it's because of the thoroughgraph figures. They have a self-serving interest. They can't possibly say the horse I gave an 80 or a 7 to is better than the horse that I gave a different number to. So they're all going to be beholden to that. All the owners, breeders, too many people are connected. I've got horses with so-and-so, and the way it is now, everybody's got horses together. So like, which owner are you going to get who's not a one-off, who has interest in the stallion of a particular horse, right? Oh, I got to make sure that I put the Curlin horse in the race because I got a piece. I got a mare who's bred to Curlin. Like there's just no way. There's no way that I feel, and I know they do it for the Breeders' Cup, but these are like the Breeders' Cup races. There's no decision at if you're like the 19th horse to get in the juvenile fillies turf, it's not even a decision to make, right? Those are the only races where the point system and the invitations come into play. It's these, the 12th rated foreign horse versus some horse who ran in the Miss Grillo, that's not the decision. We know these horses for the Derby. Let the horses sort themselves out.
Okay. Well, I see your point, but your point also is they do it for the Breeders' Cup. And the 19th, the horse isn't getting in, but till after the 12th or the 13th, it doesn't get in, or the 14th. Yeah. So it's your fear that there might be conflicts of interest. True. I don't disagree with you on that, but they live with the Breeders' Cup. So I think
you can run in the Breeders' Cup next year. You can only run the Kentucky Derby one day in your entire life. That's the difference. If I don't make the race for the Breeders' Cup this year, maybe I'll be better next year and I'll earn more points on the trail or get higher up. But it's my cynicism. I don't trust.
Yeah, I'm not quite.
I want the horses to do it. Yeah,
especially because
people are.
Okay. Because they do, the funny thing about you've seen these races around the country. There are not that many of them anymore, but the such and such, like the Belmont Derby Invitational or something. Yeah. You see these kind of races, they're invitationals. And anybody who wants to get invited gets invited,
Right. They can't get 14.
I want to be invited. Yeah. Okay, we'll invite you. But, but when you have races that overfill, I think the racing office, if it's the racing, it's their race. They can do whatever they want. But anyway, the bottom line is, I kind of actually like your solution better. So I'll go with you on that. There's no way finishing second in the Santa Anita Derby should have, or any Grade 1 final prep race should have taken that kind of hit, especially when you get beat in nose, because that's the difference between being in the race and not being in the race. And you should be in the race. You're good enough. You're one on the top.
And maybe you save a couple qualifiers for the last round races by placement, right? Guaranteed the top 2 in the final round make the Derby. And then they're going to bump somebody else who accrued points in January, February that don't really mean as much now. Something along those lines.
All right.
Could be a different way of doing it. But I still want the horse to earn their way in based on a system that's already in place. I don't like the idea of getting people involved in stuff. I wouldn't be a fair judge either. Right? So not to stretch my cynicism just to other people. I'm cynical that I could do a good job.
The only reason, one more last word here, and that is, I see where you're coming from, but I'm not talking about the whole group. I'm only talking about the bottom 5. So, 5 horses. The chances of you being among those final 5, if you had enough points anyway, are pretty strong.
Right.
But we're not in charge. So when we own a racetrack, we'll change it. How about that?
It's all fun and games until your horse gets shafted.
By the way, that happened to me. I had a horse named Windward Passage, who was, I can't even remember what year it was. It was early 2000 because he was the son of from the first crop of Captain Bodgett. And we got
Steve Asmussen.
And we got into number 20. So we like Thursday, we got in, and so all of our people, our Team Valor people who were coming from everywhere, we're in the race to come in, and they entered the race, and then Baffert threw some horses in that didn't belong, and then scratched them. So not only did we not get in, but all these people blew over.
Like behind at the bar or somebody like that got entered in.
So it was anyway. So I didn't like that. I needed our people who spent all that money to fly in and got there on Saturday morning and said, "You're not running." Baffert threw some horse in and scratched it.
You wonder why I'm cynical about people.
Yeah, okay. I
Right.
see where you're coming from. Happened to
Let's
me,
go to-
so I realize it.
Let's go to topic 2 before I burn every bridge I have in the industry. They knew we're talking about here in the Maker's Mark Mile. Shea Pierre was 24-1 right before the race, ended up 9-1, but looked like 1-9 coming down the stretch. Let's go back to last Friday at Keeneland in the Maker's Mark Mile.
Shea Pierre tries to pick up the chase, switches off the rail, comes after the leader now to the top of the stretch, then a gap of 3 to Cabo Spirit and a margin of 7 more. Back to Modern Games, who's a distant fourth. The leaders are past the quarter pole. Shea Pierre ranges up on the outside, takes a narrow lead from Dr. Zemph in second. 3 more lengths. Cabo Spirit is in third. Another 5 lengths back to Modern Games, up to the mark. Shea Pierre has the lead out to 6 lengths in deep stretch. Modern Games and up to the mark are running on second and third. No catching. Shea Pierre, Flavien Prat to win the Maker's Mark Mile.
Let's talk first about the race itself, Jeff. This was an outstanding performance. And when you beat a world traveler and a world-renowned 2-time Breeders' Cup winner like Modern Games, you've done something.
He didn't just beat him; he destroyed him, and and he did it. You know, I mean, you talk about trying to make up ground, and I read somewhere where Modern Games actually ran his last quarter of a mile in like 22 and change or something. I don't know how much faster you could run, and he still never really got in the picture. Somehow he managed to finish second. I'll give him credit for that. And it was his first start since the Breeders' Cup, and I'm not sure how crank up he was. But this is a gelding that we had given a lot of coverage to on this show last year when he came over here and won a couple of races. He won a race at Laurel, and he really did look like a thoroughbred version of King Kong in doing it. And both of us were kind of speculating at that time how good he might become. Well, then he disappeared. Now we can speculate. Now we can do what we did last year, and that's speculate.
Right.
That performance in this race, the Maker's Mark, he's only been beaten once, and that was in his comeback in the winter at Tampa Bay when he was clearly not ready to run. Even the trainer said that. But the way he ran in this race, how do you not make him not only maybe the best miler and turf miler in the States, but one of the best in the country to do what he did in the Modern Games, and to do it with a first half in 47-3 and a second half in 45-4? Who's catching you when you're doing that?
No, nobody is. And, it was the Henry Clark, the race he won at Laurel last spring, about this same time of year. Something about this time of year, he perks up coming north, and he didn't make it to the Dinner Party Stakes, which is that race right before the Preakness. And we were all assuming he ran in the Henry Clark. He ran that well for Delacour coming out of Fair Hill, that he'd come back Preakness Day. And we were all ready to bet him. I remember you and I talking about it, like, you're not going to touch this horse. And then he, of course, got injured, never showed back up again until almost, circled back all the way to 2023. So he's got a big future. I think he's above the Dinner Party Stakes. I don't think we're going to see him on Preakness Day now. And he's probably grade 1 from here out the rest of the season. Tries to figure out how to get out to Santa Anita at this point for the big one in the fall, because this was a fantastic performance. And I don't know a turf miler on the male side who's going to warm him up off a performance like that. Maybe we'll see one in the filly ranks a little bit later on the program. So I have to stick around for that.
That would be interesting. But
let's
I want to
talk about
ask
the odds drop here.
Yeah, because I know that you're tuned into this, Jeremy, more than I am. And I remember watching the race, and he was 24-1 going to the gate. And I wasn't really planning on betting the race because, quite frankly, I thought Modern Games would probably win. And I didn't, but and he was 2-5. I certainly wasn't going to bet on him. But then when I said to myself, if this horse hadn't run that lousy race in Tampa Bay, I'd probably like him here. But because of the long layoff, another layoff, I figured he's probably not what he used to be. And yet he didn't really have to run in a grade 1. So I'm thinking maybe the barn thinks he is this good. I don't know. I'll just watch the race. And down the backstretch, he's sitting second. I'm thinking, well, he might win it. And I looked up, he's 9-1. I said, wait a minute, where did this go? Yeah. And, the old they knew. I probably wouldn't have been that upset if he was 9-1 in the race. I might have even played him at 9-1. But at 24-1, I figured, he's dead. He's dead in the board.
Right?
So, I mean, is it? And then, of course, everybody the whole world must have bet on him because the whole world was complaining about it on Twitter. So I'm thinking, what gives? And I know that you've dealt with this issue before, and I'd like your input as to, is this really bad for racing, or is it something you just have to live with?
Well, I don't think everybody in the world bet on him late. I think a handful of people, and literally less than 5, when you look at the computer teams, bet on him and hammered him down. There were some odd wagering patterns to this race because as soon as it happened, the will pays were still up on the express bet screen. So I fished through real quick. He was the second favorite in the daily doubles. Modern Games was the favorite. Shea Pierre was the second choice in the doubles. But in the pick 3 that ended on that race, he was the 5th choice. You never see that. You never see that. So it tells me that there was a lot of computer action on this horse in the doubles that pounded him down to the second choice because of the way he took all the late money. That had to be computer money in the very last click of the tote like that. So the calls were all over this horse an hour before the race and a minute before the race. They had to have hammered him in doubles. There was an upset in the previous race on the card. So it wasn't even like it was like favorite to him, and so the double didn't pay what it should have paid. The winner didn't pay what it should have paid. The calls were all over this, the computer-aided wagers. So that's just the reality. Their algorithm had him higher than the rest of the public. He's probably, without that computer money, he probably is 15, 20 to 1 in that particular race when you had such a favorite as Modern Games who pushed the odds of everybody else up. The computer-aided wagering is here. It's reality. It's part of the game. As a regular, call me a recreational player, if you will. I'm not playing professionally for my income and playing every race every day. So as a recreational player, it's a tough hurdle to beat. It's a very tough hurdle to beat. And that's just the reality of it. These computer-aided wagering and models, it's not that they necessarily liked one horse in a particular race all the time either. That's what we notice because the horse wins, the odds drop. But these systems are betting multiple horses in races. They're trying to get the right price on all the horses. They're not necessarily saying we think Shea Pierre is the winner. We say that the inefficiency in the pool is he's most likely the second best horse in the race, and you've got him as the 6th most best horse in the race based on the win odds, and that's where the money's going to come in and leverage him down to where they think the best price should be. That's the edge that they have is, with the computers and the algorithms and everything that can process that kind of information in seconds, and then their access to the pools allows them to place those wagers in mere seconds, where as a recreational player or somebody who's just playing as a customer wouldn't have that same kind of efficiency ability to get that many wagers down in that amount of time. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'll probably get in trouble for saying it. I understand the reality of the business of it, why we take computer-aided wagering. It's a huge percentage of the overall handle in the country. Are there better ways for it to come in and out of the system? Those are good discussions to have. I don't have the answers to those. You might, in some places, they've restricted when that money can go in the win pool, but they don't restrict it in other pools. So is that a PR move to kind of so that you don't notice it? But the exactas are dropping like a bomb, when the computers hit them at the last second. You just weren't looking at the exacta will pays the whole time, like you were looking at the win odds for the last 20 minutes staring at you on the screen. It's obvious when it happens in the win pool, but when it happens on the same thing, whether like the doubles that we're talking about, right? Those doubles were hammered at some point previous to that race and happened to be right to Shea Pierre. So that's, I think, exactly what happened in that situation. The computer was all over it. I think the discrepancies between the double and the pick 3 will pays tell you that they were hot to that particular horse. There was a huge overlay on the horse in terms of, 24 to 1 at a minute to post. So it sent the spidey senses into gear for the computers and, they brought it down to where they thought it was a winnable level, but you're not getting 9 to 1 on Shea Pierre anymore after that performance. I know that. But yeah, I mean, look, if you bet the horse and you said, I thought I was going to get 24 to 1 and I got 9, that sucks. I get it. That sucks, but the answer isn't fixed odds either. I don't want to hear that argument. We get fixed odds betting and it's not what you're thinking, I mean, it's like, oh yeah, I bet 5 to 1, I get 5 to 1. That's great. Hit a bunch of 5 to 1 shots and see if they still want to offer you 5 to 1 anymore. See if they even want to take your action anymore after you hit a couple winners. They'll be cutting people off on fixed odds.
They tried fixed odds
in my estimation.
In Vegas, they tried that about 35 years ago, and they were out of business like in about a month because the fixed odds guy couldn't out-sharp the Sharpies, so that went under. No, that'll never happen. But in this case, there's one positive way of looking at it. Yeah, you thought you were going to get 24-1, but you got 9-1 on a horse that should have been 7-5. So,
right.
In
hindsight,
you cash your ticket, but I understand it. I get it. I'm not trying to make light of it, but it's the reality of the sport. You can complain about it all you want, but I read where it's like something like 23% of all the handle comes from these things. So that's not going to go away. There's no way the racetracks are going to.
No,
they don't want it any higher than that, but they're not gonna restrict it.
It's the same way with horsemen when it comes to purses, right? Nobody wants casinos propping up horse racing, but ask anybody if you'd like to see that casino money taken out of the purses. Everybody can say hell no, right? Yeah, right. So the same way when you're accepting the handle from these places, I get it. I'm I don't get a vote in such matters. Personally, look, it makes it tougher. Here's the reality: it makes it tougher to be a value win better. No question about that. Because if you've banked your whole day on I Love Shea Pierre, and then you see that price, he's 24-1, maybe you bet 100 on him instead of 200, right? Because he's 24-1, and I'm trying to get to a certain point, and I'm weighting my wagers based on the price and as it fluctuates. Had he been 9-1, maybe you'd have bet 200 on him, So it's going to even change the way that you bet, because of the late change, and you don't have the ability to adapt after seeing that late change. So it makes it very difficult to be a straight win pool better. And that's why more people, I think, are kind of like, I'll play the pick fours, I'll play the pick fives. Yep. I'm not as price sensitive at that point to what's happening late odds drops. And so it changes the way you strategize and the way that you would bankroll your day. And that's part of the reality. And that's one thing we can talk about. When we may not be able to fix the situation or correct it or come up with the right idea between you and I, but how do we adapt to it? You either stay away or you pivot to something else in terms of how you're going to place your wagers through the day. And so that certainly has changed the way we strategize. Let's go to topic number 3 on the big board this week. We're paging Eddie Della Houssaye, one of the great closing jockeys of all time, or even Pat Wait all day for his reputation, because when it came to the Apple Blossom last week, we've seen this act before from Secret Oath. She just couldn't help herself going after the leader.
As they race into the far turn, and the Apple Blossom still very well spread out, hot and sultry with the lead, but Secret Oath with each stride now is chopping into the margin under Tyler Gaffleone. David Cabrera and Hot and Sultry lead the way to the upper stretch, but Secret Oath is closing right in, and then it's a 5-length break to Clairiere in the Stone Street colors on the inside as they straighten away at the top of the stretch, and Secret Oath goes on by Hot and Sultry. Secret Oath is drawing clear. Clairiere is 3 lengths back, but trying hard with her rally under Joel Rosario. Hot and Sultry to the inside, third, final 16. Secret Oath, here comes Clairiere. Secret Oath, Clairiere racing on the outside. Clairiere gets up. Clairiere adds the Grade 1 Apple Blossom to her remarkable resume. Secret Oath tagged late.
So we've seen this before, as we mentioned. It's that early move from Secret Oath, and she gets caught at the wire here by Clairiere. An excellent fill in her own right. Take nothing away from the victory. Joel Rosario is good, a closer. You're paging Eddie D and Pat Day. Joel Rosario is the closest thing we have in today's modern game as far as a finishing jockey, and he got the job done there with Clairiere, Jeff. But we've talked about Secret Oath going all the way back to Luis Contreras. We beat him with a lead pipe over the head for moving too soon. Luis Saez did it in a few races. And now Tyler Gaffleone, I think, did it again as she just moved too soon. If she times the move better, I don't think they beat her.
I don't think so either. And, we've talked about this, and maybe this is something that Secret Oath, if she really wants to be a great, really you have to be able to keep your momentum going a little farther than she's capable of doing. But on the other hand, if you're Wayne Lucas, if you're the jockey, you have to know this too by now. I mean, this was her, believe it or not, this was her 15th career start. It's not like she's some lightly raced, green filly. We know what she wants to do. And when you have a horse like Hot and Sultry that's in front of you, and you should know that I can take her anytime I want. I'm not worried about the leader. What about the one behind me, though? That's the one that I'm afraid of. And I gotta wait as long as I want, because when I push the button for Secret Oath, she'll give it to me from here to about there, and that's it. Yeah. And what happened was Secret Oath went from she absolutely cannot lose at the 3/16 pole to getting beat. And that should never have happened. So, like I say, Eddie Delahousie, Pat Day, I mean, they have the reputation of waiting forever, but it worked for them. They're not in the Hall of Fame for nothing. And maybe it's going to take someone of that ilk to be able to win a big race with Secret Oath and ride her the way she needs to ride, be ridden.
And we talked about this a little bit before going air. Sometimes we just complain about rides. That's what we do as handicappers and horse players.
Right.
But I went back and actually looked at the past performances going into the Apple Blossom, and this was the record for Secret Oath. At the third call in the past performances, she's run a bunch of two-turn races, almost all two-turn races. At the third call, if she's first or second, she's 1 for 6. She just has the maiden win. When she's sitting third or worse at the third call, further off the pace, 5 for 8 with 5 stakes wins. I mean, the proof is in the results at that point. Just let that speed horse go. Wait. Come when Clairiere comes, and I got a feeling she outkicked Clairiere through the stretch, much like she did in the previous race in the Azeri Stakes when she did wait.
Right.
It's just the way she needs to be ridden, but she's a really talented filly. She runs every time. Clairiere the same way. There are very few blips in Clairiere's radar over the years. She's come with her game almost every time out. We've been blessed with a pretty nice group of fillies here in the last few years. Malathought, Nest, and that group from last year. When you add them all together, what a group we had, and we still have a pretty good one this year. And we'll see what 3-year-old fillies come through the Oaks Trail, and we'll add to that distaff division later in the year. But man, just wait around a little bit. Pat, wait all day. If you ride her like he rode Easy Goer against Sunday Silence at Gulfstream in '99, right? When everybody threw their head up in the air and said, "My God, Pat Day, what the hell are you waiting on?" With Secret Oath, you want one of those Pat Day kind of rides.
By the way, I think Ness did breeze today for the first time, so you mentioned her.
Oh, nice.
But she's back in getting geared up for the summer, and I'm sure these fillies will meet again. And it was fun last year, wasn't it?
Great group.
You know?
Yeah.
And if we get some help from the 3-year-old division later on, it's going to be fun.
I think I saw a little deal. Faiza might be headed towards the Black-Eyed Susan. Of course, she's not on the Oaks Trail because of Baffert and the whole Churchill thing. But if we see Faiza in the Black-Eyed Susan, that's another member of that division that could be in the big ones. We get the cotillion time in September at Parks. You know, that could be quite a division by the time we get to that point. Let's go to our fourth topic this week on the board. It's Veloce. Jeff's teaching me Italian. That's in Italian. That means what, Jeff?
It means fast. And in Italian, the filly, who's not bred in Italy, by the way, she was bred in England, but she's fast in any language. And in Italian, returned as well as she left. This was her first start since running second, an outstanding second, by the way, behind Tuesday in the Breeders' Cup Filly of Mare Turf. And she was, as many of the Breeders' Cup participants and winners from last November, she was ready right off the bat. She was very, very impressive in the Jenny Wiley.
Quarter mile to go. In Italian, the leader. White Frost to the inside with the Moonlight to the outside. Then Queen Goddess skims as fifth toward the rail. In Italian has the lead. In Italian, into the final furlong, opens up here. 3 lengths in front of With the Moonlight. Second ahead. White Frost is third. In Italian, the leader coming to the line in the Grade 1, Jenny Wiley. In Italian to win it for Irad Ortiz Jr. With the Moonlight was home second. White Frost third, skims fourth. 1 minute, 39.71 seconds.
Italian, prosciutto, bolognese, maybe carbonara. I do know Arrivederci, and that's what she said to that field. And you know, you had Appleby with the runner-up with the Moonlight.
Yeah.
And, you know, Appleby's beaten on 2 consecutive days on U.S. soil. We just, you know, we're not used to seeing that. What a performance here by the filly. I mean, she is a crack miler, mile and a 16th, as we saw there in the Jenny Wiley. But the challenge will be different come fall if she's going to stick around to the Breeders' Cup, right?
It will be, unless they want to run her a mile and a quarter, they being Chad Brown. She is a miler. She did win going a mile and 1/8 in the Diana, but that's not a mile and a quarter. And so they would have to figure out whether or not it would be best to run against whatever Euros will come over, and there will be a few, I'm sure, going a mile and a quarter in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, or to shorten her up, not shorten her up, but keep her at a mile, but then have to run against the boys. And we know the fillies going a mile on grass are very capable of beating the boys.
Right.
If you're, on turf, and who knows how sharp an Italian will be, or if she'll be better than she is now in the fall. But I would think that would be the kind of game plan that Chad will follow. And I mean, she who knows? She'll probably have to beat the one that we just saw, Shea
Pierre.
Shea Pierre, yeah, and Modern Games. So it's not going to be easy no matter what path she takes.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever race she's in, they're going to have to beat her. That's how good I think she is.
That'd be like a World Cup final, Shea Pierre and an Italian going head to head. France and Italy for the World Cup. We'll see when it comes Breeders' Cup Mile time. Our final topic this week on the big board is the Stars of Tomorrow segment, where we've done a pretty decent job over the last year or so identifying horses you want to keep an eye on for the future. We've seen some of them run big in recent weeks. How about Scylla, the debut winner at Keeneland last week, is daughter of closed hatches.
Seeks to join them, still 3 lengths away from third. Zeitlos pokes ahead in front. Scylla trying to find more to her outside. Miss Arlington drops back toward the inside. Zeitlos, Scylla right alongside, 16th to go. Scylla ahead, a neck, a half length to the good. Scylla, Javier Castellano to win it.
So, Jeff, it's time to get excited when you get a filly with this kind of pedigree in the hands of Bill Mott, who's had so much success in the Breeders' Cup Distaff division throughout its history. I thought visually watching this race, I was like, who does this remind me of? And the first name that came to mind was Royal Delta. When she won the Black-Eyed Susan as a 3-year-old, just looked like that. Just the impressiveness, the stride, everything about it. And I'm just like, my God, if she's Royal Delta and then it's Bill Mott, it's this pedigree, I mean, she could be something special.
Well, I saw a pre-race interview with Mott prior to the race, and you could see that he was, she, 6 furlongs. I mean, that's a little too short. And then he said, "Well, she's really good." So he kind of left you there. I said, "Yeah, I know she's really good," because we had video at XPTV on her last year when she was at Saratoga as a 2-year-old, but she never made it to the post. But good mover. And what that stretch drive didn't show was that she had early trouble. She didn't break that great. She tried to move up between horses, got shuffled back and steadied and taken back. All this in going 3/4 of a mile. And then was able to rally wide and win going away without really being asked hard. 83 buyer number, very strong for a first-time starter. So, and clearly a filly that is going to be better with distance. Full brother was Tacitus, who earned $3.3 million or something like that, won the Wood. So whatever she did going 3/4, she's going to do better going a mile, and whatever she does going a mile, she's going to do better going a mile and an eighth. So who knows how good she will be and how much her talent will carry her, but she is exciting, and it's just going to be very interesting to see how ambitious they get with her after a maiden win. There's no rush, but on the other hand, I'm not sure there are many stakes races that she's not going to be able to win based on what I just saw.
Yeah, and she's in the right hands. We talk about Mott's success, and she's in the right region. There are so many good races in the Northeast for 3-year-old fillies throughout the course of the year. The NYRA circuit just pounds them out one after the other, and so you could go to the Acorn and then on to the Coaching Club Oaks and all those great races.
Mother Goose and all those other races.
Mother Goose, there's just a million places to run. With Alabama, right, with a good 3-year-old filly, you don't have to go far. You can run out of your home stall a lot that she can. For the Bill Mott barn. So very exciting there, talking about Scylla. That's going to wrap up our 5 topics this week on It's Official. Jeff and I will be back on Friday with the First Call podcast when we preview a big weekend with handicapping stakes races. Huge week coming up at Laurel Park. The turf course is open in Maryland. They've got 4 or 5 preps towards the Preakness Week grass stakes that are part of the card on Saturday. Return of live racing at Santa Anita after their 1-week respite to get the post-champion meet going here through June. We'll have the Californian Stakes on Saturday at Santa Anita. And, of course, the Oaklawn Handicap is on Saturday. Really good-looking field for that. If you want to learn more about the Oaklawn Handicap field, we already have a Meet the Contenders piece up at expressbet.com and at firstbet.com. Jeff, you're ready to get back into your Santa Anita daily blogging, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, entries are being drawn today. They usually draw them on Sunday, and I was disappointed when I realized that they're not drawing this week until Tuesday. So I'm waiting for the entries to come out. I'll dive in and post it Thursday night. And then, of course, Saturday and Sunday will continue on. So, racing resumes here at Santa Anita and around the country, and it's going to be fun. And we're getting closer and closer by the day as we await the Run for the Roses, which this year is going to be a spectacular wagering opportunity. Even if you can't pick the winner, those exactas and trifectas are going to be unbelievably attractive and lucrative. So lots of ways to make money, and it's coming up before you know it.
This Saturday and Sunday will be the key workout weekend for these Kentucky Derby horses, because in 2 weeks, you're getting into that final work before the Derby. It's that next to last work that's usually the key one, where you want to see where a horse is hitting stride and their peak, and then they're just going to try to maintain it there Derby week and run through. So this Saturday and Sunday, pay close attention. XBTV will have all the coverage for you. And Jeff and I, I'm sure, will be reviewing a lot of workout information when we return here on Tuesday. On behalf of everybody with Express Bet and First Bet, have a great week at the races. We'll talk to you.